I'm Aaron Lawler-Patterson, the Goodness Chick. I'm a podcaster, motivational speaker, author, counselor, and proud part of the Mental Health News Radio Network. Join me on the journey of navigating the joys and pitfalls of life, addressing mental health, addiction, raising kids, and giving back. If it takes a village, then join me as one of those villagers. Villagers wanted. A higher level of goodness. About this time last year, I was kind of getting ready to launch the release of my second book, A Higher Level of Goodness. And in it, if you haven't already read it, talk a lot about kind of life lessons, learning from one another, the power of being willing to grow as a human being, learn from other people. And I kind of take stories from alumni that I worked with a number of years ago, just about struggles, growth, beautiful things, and tough things. And so if you haven't already, you can check it out on Amazon, A Higher Level of Goodness. It's something I'm very proud of, something that kind of is a reflection of both my life and that of students that I've worked with over the years. And I do believe there is tremendous power and relevance and potential in, at times, being vulnerable and being transparent. Because I think, when we're not, and we try to be something that we're not, people can see through us. I also believe that when it comes to mental health, when it comes to life, when it comes to addiction and everything wrapped up, there's so much more to be gained when somebody is not just honest, but vulnerable, using their own life stories. And so that's kind of like, this has been tugging at my heart the past few weeks. I was a bit hesitant to share with today's podcast, but I'm going to kind of jump right into it because I believe that there's somebody out there that can hopefully benefit and gain and be encouraged and be challenged with what I'm going to be saying. So a number of weeks ago, I was in Malaysia. I'm walking down a street. I was going to go get, to a bakery or something like that with my son. We're walking. And I could tell, I'm looking at him, he's quiet, which he's like never quiet. And I said, buddy, what's up? What are you thinking about? And he had said, Mommy, why do I have, a middle name? And to him, my son doesn't introduce himself as Jack. Jack is the whole package. It's Jack Isaac Shane Patterson, right? He has two middle names. And I said, well, you were given two middle names because it's something that's special to both Daddy and I. And he said, well, what is that? I said, well, Isaac is after Daddy's grandpa, and Shane is after my sister Shayna. And he looked at me and he said, he asked me about my sister, and he said, well, why isn't she here anymore, Mommy? And that's a hard thing to explain to a not quite 4-year-old. And it really had me thinking, as we're kind of in the next few weeks is going to mark 20 years since my sister Shayna and her friends, Angie, Megan, and Amanda, lost their life to a drunk driver. And that's crazy, 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 crazy for me to think about 20 years. And there's times I have to push things to the side and not let myself think about it because it's overwhelming. And, I've been told, as those of you with that are fellow Gold Card members of the Grief Club, which stinks, but it is what it is, that we're time heals all wounds. Well, I feel like you've either lost a shoe, if that's the case, but definitely not somebody who is significant in your life. And I think sometimes we say things, especially when it comes to grief, because we're uncomfortable and we don't know what else to say. So I think that's kind of a cliche term that has the best of intentions, but can kind of sting like a bee, big time. And, I think 20 years later, I miss my sister, man. I miss her. It's compounded by the fact that, as I look at my 4-year-old who now really does, he asks about my sister. He asks about Aunt Shayna. And it really kind of had me thinking about the reasoning of why 4 lives were taken out. And with that, the domino effect of how many people are involved in what we call a tragedy. And so this isn't, to me, about focusing on if you look it up, preciousgemsmemorial.com. It's an organization we started many years ago, the families, to be vocal about the dangers of drinking and driving. And it's a fabulous website. Something I'm also very proud of is that they a professional video was put together about the girls, about the families involved, my family and the 4 other families that were involved, that were impacted. But see, this is what I want to get into today. It's not ever sides. There's no sides when it comes to tragedy, when it comes to hurt, because the drunk driver, her name Melissa Marvin, her family lost a daughter. Right? She's spending pretty much the rest of her life behind bars, right? Melissa Marvin will not have life in society for the rest of her life. And I do believe that's justified, and she was given a sentence that was appropriate. And I wish it was something we were more consistent with. But when we make decisions, right? When there are decisions that are made that we're going to put under the umbrella of selfish or recklessly impulsive, it's not just one person that's impacted. And this is what I really was proud of with this video, because too often it's like, okay, this is, the victim's end, right? This is the family's impact. Well, there's sides to everything in terms of the hurt and the magnitude of loss. And so I want to get into the root of things, where I think about that day almost 20 years ago, where people had an opportunity. And we went really seriously, slide by slide by slide of that day during the trial. That was one of, it was a horrible week, horrible. I think what stuck with me the most was how many people stayed silent. And I think we live in a society where too many people have said or have this mentality, it's none of my business. I don't want to create any waves. I'm going to stay out of it. And that day, multiple people had the opportunity to step in and do something. But you know what? They chose to be silent. They chose to put their hands over their eyes, because you know what, man? It's not my problem. Well, what I say to that is bullcrap. Because if somebody had said, hey, Melissa, listen, man, let me give you a ride home. I'm going to take the keys. You shouldn't get behind the car. I and 4 other families, okay, would have their kids who would now be the adults. And I think about, it's not just our situation, so many situations where people keep their eyes closed, their mouths shut. And I call bullcrap on that. And I'm going to tell you, our lives are very, very short. And too often lives are snuffed out because people choose the easy route. They choose to stay silent, even with family members, even with close friends. I don't want to tick them off. I don't want to step on their toes. Then you're not a real friend. One of the things I used to share with kids frequently, I would go in to classrooms and kind of give different scenarios. If you're in this situation or you're in this situation, what would you do? And it was very interesting, the responses of kids, I would get down to the bottom of it, like, listen, man, when it comes to, if you're really, really, really the real deal friend, okay, when things get intense, when things get rough, dude, you're there. You're calling them out on their crap, because when we don't, you're not a real friend, right? Whether that is, they smoked up before they get in the car, all right? They're popping pills. They are self-harming, right? They've referenced about hurting themselves or putting an end to their life. I'm going to tell you this, more than half of us, right? More than half of us have struggled big time when it comes to our mental health, when it comes to somebody we care about who's struggling with some form of addiction, okay? When it comes to life. And so if that's the majority of us, why do we step back? Why? Okay, and this is not about everybody being a therapist or counselor. That's not what I'm talking about. This is what I'm talking about, humanity. And saying, listen, man, listen, I'm here. Or listen, why don't I give you a ride home? Or listen, you know what? I'm kind of worried about you. What do you think about going talking to a counselor? Or what do you think about going and talking to, if it's a kid, a parent that you trust, or an older brother or sister, or somebody that they trust and that is grounded and knows what they're talking about? We need to utilize our common sense, our empathy, and really take a step back and saying, like, if I'm in these situations, and I think there's nothing wrong with role playing, what do I do? And I think with our kids, man, we got to talk it out. We can't expect them to be in situations and know exactly what to do, because they're kids. They don't know. It's scary crap. talking to them, if you're in this situation, what would you do? If you're in this situation, like, how can I be there to help you out with this? Because when we don't clearly talk about things get super convoluted. One of the questions I used to ask students when I would go into a driver's ed class, I'd be like, yeah, listen, you're at a party, right? And you had a designated driver. That person is no longer sober, right? So you are now in a situation that you either get in the car with somebody who's really buzzed, they're buzzed and they're drunk, right? Or you get in the car with somebody who's buzzed because they're high. And I'm going to tell you how staggering the numbers were, where kids would be like, listen, I would just, I get in the car with someone who's high. What else would I do? I don't know what, if I'm in this situation, they're not really that bad. And then I would ask, in terms of how many of you guys have kind of had conversations with your parents in terms of dialoguing about this. Very few of them did, right? Because we kind of sometimes think, well, our kids would know what to do. Well, they don't. Even us as adults, well, they're not really that bad for me to get in the car with them, or I'm not that bad to drive down the road, or I'm not really harming myself that bad when it comes to cutting or being in a toxic relationship. Man, we make excuses. And we got one shot at life, man, right? This is no dress rehearsal. We got one shot, and being healthy is so important. And it's okay to reach out. It is okay to reach out. It's okay to say I need help, or it's okay, I'm in a situation and I know I'm in over my head, and it's scary to reach out. But what I flip the tables and think about how many times we've seen somebody who is hurting or is in a situation that, man, your gut is telling you they're not in a good place. And when we kind of succumb to silence and to taking a step back, there's something wrong. Having the ability to speak up, having the ability to know that your words and your voice matter, that your presence matters. It goes so far. I think most people don't realize the extent of it. I really don't. I think most people just think, you know what, somebody else will kind of take, will take the baton. Somebody else will pick up. Somebody else will speak up. And we're really wrong when we have that mentality. We're really wrong because, I think about every single day, people make the decision to be silent, right? It's not judging people. It's not screaming from the top of our lungs when somebody's in a bad place. It's using our hearts to connect with another human being and be like, you know what? Maybe this isn't such a good idea. Maybe there's some alternatives, right? And because when we don't, it just leads to not good things, and I think about all the hurt that's out there. I think about the many people who are part of the Gold Card member club, in a way that it could have been prevented. There's tons and tons of ways that we lose people that are unpreventable. And what I want to explain to you is, one of the things that have aggravated me over the years is the terms sometimes we use. When Melissa Marvin made the decision to get behind the wheel, right? She was intoxicated, and to turn the key in the ignition, it went from being a vehicle to a weapon, right? When she plowed into the car that was a third car going through the intersection, making a left-hand turn that day, my friends, it was not an accident. It was a crash. And we need to get our terminology straight. An accident is I was walking through a room and I stubbed my toe, on the side corner, this table, or I tripped down the steps because, my feet got in the way, kind of thing. That's an accident, right? Accidents happen. This was something that was fully preventable. This was something that fully could have not happened. Absolutely. But it was a crash. And so we think about every single day, there are things that are preventable that occur. And some of those people are witness to and others aren't. And so I really want to kind of throw out you today is, in what ways can we kind of tweak how we go through life? In what ways can we have more of an eyes wide open mentality? Our mouths don't stay shut, right? That we extend our hearts and we extend our hands to people who are in situations that are compromising, or in situations that can not only harm themselves, but other people. And I think we need to have dialogue more about this. We need it, because when we don't, not good things happen. One of the things I would try to chat with kids about is saying, especially now we're creeping towards prom season. And I would say, you shouldn't be drinking, when you're going to prom house. Well, if they're going to prom house, their shore house, their mountain house, their whatever house, and there's, 10 to 90 kids in a house. The intention is to drink, right? They're not, knitting. They're not, playing ping pong unless it's beer pong. They're going to drink. And I would say to them, do you have a wingman? And what are you talking about? Well, do you have a wingman? Because this is what happens when they're in situations like that. They have no clue what they're getting into. And you have those young people who decide to drink, and not just drink, but to overindulge in that they're just wasted. And I'll say, listen, did you talk with your girlfriends, guys? Did you talk with your guy friends about sticking together, right? And, well, not really, a little bit. Some of them do, some of them don't. Well, it's are you cutting people off when they've had too much to drink? Are you keeping eyes on each other, that if, Susie has drank way too much and she's going in a room with somebody that you shouldn't be going to the room with, and where people end up having sex when they don't, even know who their partner is, or wanting to, or intending to, and then you get on the other side of it where people are raped, right? And I've had conversations where it's like, did you say something to, your friend who was walking with that person, and you knew that they weren't in the right state of mind? Well, I didn't. What? We need dialogue. That person just went under the greatest violation a human being could. They were raped. They were assaulted. And they can't remember half of it. And now they have to go with that for the rest of their lives. And that person what? And so I believe we can empower each other when we dialogue about things, about blowing the whistle, about speaking up, about being, a human being. And it's not only wrong, it's so easy and cheesy and weak when we stay quiet. I believe with all my heart that we have the ability to empower each other. We have the ability to change the tide with a whole lot of things if we begin to dialogue and we begin to broach on things that sometimes can make us uncomfortable. One of the things a number of years ago, I kind of became convicted with, and I don't throw this on anybody, but I say, if I've had anything to drink, I really don't drink very frequently. But if I do, I go out and I have a pint of a Guinness, or I have a glass of red wine, there's a drop of alcohol in my body. I don't drive. And that's something for me, it weighs strong on my heart, as well as my husband. And some people think we're weird, but I'll say, if I'm driving down the road and, I had a half a beer, and I get in a fender bender, really in the back of my head, it's kind of like, was there something, what I put in my body contribute even a smidge to this happening? And that's my conviction. And it's through things that I've seen in my own life. But I think sometimes we have things to work on, we always will as human beings, but there's things that really can alter the future of so many people. I think it's just crazy. I'm 41 years old, and my sister, she would have been 39 this year. I mean, it's crazy. And has been gone longer than she was on this earth. It just sucks. And I'm no longer angry about it. I do not hate Melissa Marvin. Me personally, I have forgiven her. I can't forget, I can't forget. And it has molded so much of my life. It has impacted, her decision has impacted, I say this not lightly, hundreds of thousands of people. I really do believe that. I really do. And she has to live with that for the rest of her life. Her parents, her family members really essentially lost her, so the decisions that either we make or others make have a ripple effect. And it's not being a nag. It's not being judgmental. It's being human. And we're laying our humanity upon those people who maybe need a little bit of tug, maybe need, that light to kind of be jiggled in their face to say, your voice, your words matter. And so I leave that with you today, my friends. I do really encourage you, if you get a chance, to hop on goodnesschick.com. Wrong website. You can check goodnesschick.com out, but preciousgemsmemorial.com. For those of you who maybe are teachers, who are administrators, who have a youth group, even your business, you want to talk about a video that really kind of pulls at your heartstrings, but makes you think that our voice matters, that our decisions matter. The video is powerful. It's $75 if you hop on the website. Actually, especially if you're in a school or youth group, man, it comes with a curriculum that is not, it's ongoing, it's dialogue, it's chatting. Man, we need to chat. And so you get a chance, preciousgemsmemorial.com. Wishing you all the peace, love, and goodness, my friends. If you enjoyed today's show, I encourage you to visit goodnesschick.com and sign up for my newsletter, providing insights and encouragement just for you. Thanks for listening, my friends.